Good evening and welcome to the Daily Drum for this Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. I'm Millette Green, in tonight again for the vacationing Harold Fisher. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight, we continue our Wednesday Women Making Her Story series. Yesterday actually marked Equal Pay Day, the date symbolizing how far into the year women must work to earn what men earned in the previous year. Now, for Black women, that date is even later. It's July 27th. So, how do we catch up at a time when DEI initiatives are being rolled back? Well, my guest this evening can share a lot of light on this topic. Dr. Vaneesha Dutra focuses her teaching and research on reducing the gender and wealth gap. She is an associate professor of finance at Howard University School of Business and is our Wednesday Women Her Story maker. Dr. Dutra, thank you so very much for joining us.
Happy to be here, Millette. Please call me Vaneesha.
Okay. Okay. I will certainly do that. As you are an associate professor of finance at the Howard University School of Business, it is an honor to have you here. But first, before we get into the discussion that we definitely need to have, I want to run down some fast facts for you and for our listeners out there. Black women make just 66 cents for every dollar earned by white men. 57% of Black women who graduate from college say they struggle to repay their student loans. And female talent in finance remains one of the most underutilized business resources, with women holding senior positions in only 6% of top public financial institutions. So, Dr. Vaneesha, let's talk about this.
Let's talk.
When you hear those fast facts, which one of those stands out to you immediately and in light of what we're dealing with in society right now?
Every single one of them. There's not one that is more impactful or less impactful than the other. Gender pay gap has crippling effects not only to the Black household, but to our overall community. Lack of representation in the C-suite has a lasting impact for future representation, because it's very difficult for us to see ourselves in places where we haven't seen ourselves. The white male tends to be the standard. And so how can a young Black girl aspire to be in the C-suite when she hasn't been exposed and there's no representation of someone that looks like her there? So every single one of these, and the student loan crisis also very crippling, because again, you have this debt, and as you start your career, as you start your life, it limits your ability to purchase a home and qualify for a mortgage. And we know that home ownership is one of the top ways to acquire wealth. So it limits you there. It causes you to have to pay higher interest rates on all other debt that you need to take out. So again, every single one of these issues must be addressed.
Yeah, especially as we get into the discussion more, Black women are highly educated, more educated than any other group out there. And we start businesses at faster rates, but we struggle to get the financing that we need, the capital that we need from normal institutions. So let's talk about Equal Pay Day for Women, which was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And last year, the symbolic day was 13 days earlier. So that would suggest the clock is being turned back, not ahead. What are your thoughts about that? This equal pay is something that nags at all of us women, Black women, women of color, so much.
Equal Pay Day is symbolic indeed, as you mentioned. But I want us to be very careful. Symbolism has its place, but let's not miss the music for the noise. We need to make sure we're focusing our attention on real action, policies and procedures that move the needle in getting women equal pay for an equal job. And, in this current political environment that is very much contentious and is attacking anything around equity, we will continue the fight, but we need to be very clear. Symbolism has its place, but it's time for action. And there are some real low-hanging fruit policies that can be implemented that could help move this needle, Millette. I mean, there is systemic segregation. There is this systemic, there are systemic issues that have created this situation, but that's going to take time. But again, there are a number of low-hanging fruit policies that we can push industry to do to lessen that gap.
Which policies are those? Can you cite one in specific?
Yeah, sure. The first, quite simply, is pay transparency. We should have policies or incentivize or push industry to report the pay range for salary. I mean, this is pretty simple. This is the first step in getting us to equal pay for equal jobs. And this will absolutely benefit women in the workplace, particularly Black women. And a second and an easy follow-up to that is requiring or having law that states that in the same way that interviewers cannot ask certain questions, they should not be able to ask you what your previous salary was. Because in essence, what that does is they're looking to base your current salary, what they're willing to pay you, on what someone else said your value or worth was. And what does that do, Millette? That simply perpetuates pay disparity, gender pay disparity, and that absolutely negatively impacts Black women. So they shouldn't be able to ask this question, because again, it gives, go please.
It's a scary area for a lot of women because, first of all, we're not taught that in society generally, that we are supposed to fight for money that way, that we're supposed to negotiate, that we're supposed to push hard on salary. And then right. When you talk about Black women, the culture has taught us to be grateful for having the job, for getting the good job. And so, and not necessarily, I don't believe that as well educated as I was as a student at Howard University, I never had one course on negotiating a contract as a broadcast journalist and how to get more money, let alone pay equity, just to fight for more money. So this is a topic that's difficult for so many of us, the young students coming out, the seasoned workers. It is a scary topic for women because, especially in the climate in which we are right now, where so much is being rolled back, eliminated, and erased. How do we do this, Dr. Vaneesha?
Listen, you hit literally the third point I was going to make, Millette.
Okay, good.
We're on the same page. We have to do a better job at arming females and empowering them in their voice, okay? We are taught to be small, particularly Black women. We are taught to be grateful. We're taught to work hard without, any accolade, and this has harmed us in the workplace. And we're not taught critical skills early on how to negotiate, period. So life is about a negotiation.
It is.
Life is all about negotiation and how to navigate. So we need to do a better job of teaching our young women and our brothers how to advocate for ourselves and do so without emotion. Because unfortunately, what happens is we're made a lowball offer and we get in our feelings, rightfully so. But unfortunately, that emotion becomes weaponized, right? They turn that against us and say, see, this is what women do. So if we were equipped with the right tools from an early age, and I think the universities must do better. I've spent a lot of time at a PWI, and I have colleagues at some of the best best institutions across the world, and it is embedded in their curriculum. And I think this is something that we should look at. We must equip women with their voice and let them know that there is a time and a place to use it. And in the workplace is certainly one of those times.
And on that point, you made an interesting note about being very small, how we have shrunken ourselves sometimes in these places and spaces. So there was something that came over the internet, a post that I saw and watched over and over again, two of them actually, from Melody Hobson, who's an American businesswoman who is, if you don't know Melody Hobson, you need to know who she is,
Right.
because she is someone that we should look to for guidance, and she's done great things in her career. But she said something very interesting. I'll just paraphrase it a little bit, by saying that a shy billionaire, and I took that as a code term, pulled her to the side, and gave her advice that, she's too big in the
I saw
rooms,
that
in the
post.
corporate. You saw that.
Mhm.
And so her advice was that sometimes we need to, I guess, read the room, and we need to sometimes be very small to be very big, is what she said. And in certain rooms, she acknowledged that she was too big. And so she made some adjustments. And then on another post that you probably saw, Dr. Vaneesha, Melanie Hobson said, no one's coming to rescue you. And
Right.
we have to rescue ourselves. In a
Amen.
society in which somebody rescued Snow White, somebody rescued Fiona, the Shrek, in the Shrek cartoon.
Ain't nobody coming
Black
for us.
women, ain't nobody coming to rescue us.
That's right.
Now you think what you want to think on that, but just address that for me.
I saw that clip and I discussed it with a couple of my good girlfriends, and it was a bit controversial, but I understand exactly where she's coming from. Because in life, we need to read the room, period. And remove race. When you step into a room, you need to learn how to read it. This is about navigating life in general.
Yeah.
We are dealing, when you're in finance, you are generally going to be walking and dealing in white male spaces. And you have, and it's a game. A lot of this is a game. And if you don't understand the game and learn how to play the game, you're always going to be fighting an uphill battle. So her point there, and this is my interpretation and how I took it and how I read it, was that, listen, read the room, because there are already stereotypes of how we're going to enter a room anyway. So you can either feed the stereotype, or you can come in and you can say, listen, I'm going to let my brilliance talk over everything else. And so in order to be seen, sometimes you have to just be able to stay in the room to be seen. And you won't be invited into a room if you create friction. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you want to play in the room, you got to learn how to get in the room and stay in the room. That's the only way we win, until we, to the second point, learn to say, we don't need their room. We have our own room, and we're going to operate in our own room. But if you're going to play in that room and play in that world, you got to understand how to navigate it, and how to go back to that word we said, Molette, how to negotiate in the spaces that you are in. So I understood the point. I agree to a good extent to her point, actually.
So what are you telling your students? We have this beautiful generation, Z, and then the Gen Alphas and all of that. And they have a different mindset than on many things.
Oh, yes, they do.
Way of moving in these spaces than my Gen X experience has been. What are you hearing from them, and how are you teaching them to navigate in this world of finance, in this world of trying to push for pay equity? What are you seeing and hearing from them, and how do you teach them?
The biggest obstacle is because all of our students are bright. They're motivated. They're bright. They want to be successful. They want to build. They want all the things that any red-blooded American wants. No different. But what we're really fighting against, Molette, is this social media age that everybody thinks they're supposed to be wealthy when they walk.
Instantly. As soon as you get your diploma.
As soon as you get your cap and gown, where's my $1 million bonus and my corner office? So again, reading the room and helping them negotiate the environments they're going to be in is absolutely critical. They come out with the skills, the soft and the technical skills. Our students are great speakers. They're great with the soft skills, great behaviorally. And they come out with the technical skills. But where they struggle is this interplay between how they believe life is played out in social media and in front of the world, and how things actually happen when you're sitting at a trading desk in Wall Street. Okay. So what we're helping them navigate is how to balance being their authentic self, but in a world that has strong stereotypes about who that self is. And so we spend a lot of time helping them navigate this level of awareness. The question comes, Molette, should I cut my dreads? How should I wear my hair? My nails? It's these things that we should not have to navigate, but that can make an already challenging job. I mean, working in finance is already stressful. It doesn't matter who you are. There's big money to be made. A lot of people want to be in these spaces, and so they're looking to weed you out. Don't give them a reason. Again, these are some of the conversations, and this is why being at an HBCU, I think, is so valuable on so many levels, because I can pull my student aside, Millette, and have a conversation that I don't think they might have a professor have with them at a PWI.
Yeah,
PWI is a primarily white institution. I pull them aside like I pull my son aside. So listen here, young man, let me tell you what's about to go down and what kind of environment you're about to walk in and how you help you navigate it, because I've been there. I know the emotion, I know what it feels like, and I'm trying to make your walk lighter, your load lighter. So there's so much value that we add as a professor, particularly at HBCUs. Great question.
I love that. And we're talking about pushing our young people into the jobs of the future. Obviously, right. STEM is an area where we need to STEM, that innovation, technology. We got to get ahead, especially women, girls, and pushing them there. So let's talk about the long-term and short-term and long-term implications of the gender and racial gap. The gender racial gap. What does all of this mean for Black women, Black families, and as a whole, in all of your knowledge and what you're seeing right now and your analysis? I mean, we're on the struggle bus still. And how do we get out?
In 2025, we're still talking about some of the same human right issues that Martin Luther King was talking about, and prior, Fannie Lou Hamer, this similar issues in 2025. And it's been interesting to watch how, being in DC, how the political environment shifted overnight. Okay? Overnight. And so the interesting thing is the contentious attack on all things equity and impact that gender and racial wealth gap that we're speaking of. It absolutely impacts the Black family. Here's how. Wealth in this nation has a direct correlation, Molette, between health outcomes, of course, financial outcomes, educational opportunities and exposure, all the things that lead to living a healthy and productive life are impacted by our finances. So when you have, and generally speaking, it requires 2 paychecks to live comfortably, at least in DC. So when you have one income earner who is making almost 40% less than their white male counterpart, that puts the Black household at a disadvantage, which then puts the Black child at a disadvantage, because money impacts where you can live, how much housing you can afford. And we know also that school districts and the ranking in many cases of school districts are heavily tied to the income and the housing market. So there are these lasting impacts. And I'll say this to end. This attack on all things equity is so counterproductive. If you look at the last census, the 2020 census, all racial groups, Molette, increased in population except the all white category.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. Now, go ahead.
Did you want to wrap it up right there?
Yeah, I'll wrap it up. The point is, we're going to be living in less than 10 years and where the minorities are the majority. So any policies that negatively impact the overall well-being and health of Black and brown families will have a negative impact on our overall economy. So these policies are absolutely counterproductive.
Yeah, and I think those of us watching and experiencing it in the Black community, we feel it already. We see it coming. We're bracing for impact. You're teaching at Howard University now. You mentioned you were teaching at a PWI, but you teach graduate and undergraduate courses in investment analysis, investment banking, financial institutions, markets, real estate finance, commercial banking. You were in this business. I want to know more about what can you share about your personal experience in this world as a Black woman navigating and the highs and the lows. Can you share a little bit? Can you hear me, Doctor?
You broke up a little bit. Are you there, Millette?
Can you hear me a little bit?
I can. Yes, now I can.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
I want to know more about your personal experience in this world of finance, highs and lows.
The highs is that it's a great profession. It's a great profession for anyone who is intellectually curious. It allows you to provide a great living for yourself and for your family. So it's a great profession. And the lows or the challenges, I won't say the lows. The challenges are the ones in many cases that we just discussed. Being a female and being Black in a primarily white male dominated industry comes with its weights.
Yeah.
I've dealt with microaggressions. I've dealt with stress. I've quit jobs and moved because I did not feel welcome. I've been sidelined, all the things. But like Maya Angelou said, still we rise, still I'm here. And wouldn't change it, honestly. Wouldn't change it. I love what I do.
So what do other Black women do? Do we know how to network properly? Do we get a sponsor? Do we get a mentor early on? And who should those people be? How do we move in these spaces?
Great question. So 2 things. We cannot be afraid of having mentors that don't look like us, because unfortunately, if you are in finance, the numbers aren't in our favor. Yeah. So if all of us were trying to find someone that looked like us, some of us would be left out. Now that said, we generally operate in silos, and we're not really taught to reach out, because in these environments, you can be made to feel, Millette, that if you hang with people of like kind, that can be seen negatively. And I've seen really good women, really good brothers that mean very well, isolate themselves and not communicate with another brother or sister in a position because of how they were fearful of how it would appear to their superior. So we still have to, again, the importance of teaching our students how to navigate these situations and having an outlet. Networking is absolutely important. Having a sponsor is absolutely important. But if you can't navigate and thrive in these environments, it won't happen. So it's a negative feedback loop, right? You don't reach out for help because you're scared to do it because of how it will be seen. But if you don't reach out for help, and if you don't make yourself known, then there's no one to sponsor you, know what you can do. So it's a challenge.
The challenge is so great. And for Black women, getting people to trust us in finance is a whole nother thing. Our knowledge is great. We'll have the knowledge, but are you going to trust me as a Black woman with this knowledge? That's a whole nother mountain to climb.
That is, but it goes back quite simply to representation. And I'll say this, and I'll say it very briefly. I think parents, as a parent, I am a parent. We must be much more intentional about who we allow our children to look up to and what models we allow them to look up to. There are absolutely people in finance, men and women, who are doing absolutely phenomenal things in the space. And it's not just because they are a billionaire or a millionaire, because of the impact they are having. So we want to be careful that we're not pushing them to only idolize movie stars and entertainment. We have to be much more engaged and intentional about the figures that we allow our children to look up to, because we are here. We are here. You just got to steer them in the right way. You are here. For the sister, for the young lady that wants to be a journalist and doesn't know that this is possible, there is a Millette Green. She's got to know about you.
Dr. Vaneesha Dutra, Associate Professor of Finance at the Howard University School of Business. It has been a pleasure and honor. I mean, we could go on and on and on, and we need to, but we can't. So thank you very much for your time and your expertise. And folks need to look you up and take your classes and get some knowledge. And I thank you for your time tonight. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me, sister. You have a great afternoon.
Thank you. That's going to do it for the Daily Drum for this Wednesday, March 26th. Coming up next on 96.3 WHUR, the original Quiet Storm with the Love King himself, Raheem Devon. I'm Millette Green with WHUR and NBC4. My Stories in the Community will air this week, tomorrow morning. So hope you're watching as well. I'm in for Harold Fisher. He is on vacation. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a good night.